Hi everyone, this is Elizabeth from the community library, and today I'm going to be doing a quick video as part of our Family History Month series on how to do a family history interview. Um, just as an overview, um, October is Family History Month, and it was created in 2001 to encourage people to think about their family history. So during October, I thought it would be fun to do a little video series on very brief overviews about family history topics so that you can get started on your own. So, like I said, this month is how to do a family history interview. So, during October, we're going to be talking about family history interviews. So, first of all, why should you do a family history interview? Um, So once you get started doing your family history and learning more about your family in the past, you might have some questions that you have that you want to ask certain family members, or there might be stories that you want to save. So usually it's just a conversation or interview with the purpose of answering questions about someone's family history. So if you think about like maybe a grandchild asking their grandparent about what their life was like when they were a kid, or even during like a family reunion, you're just asking everyone about what they remember about the family. It can be done in person, over the phone, on Zoom, or even over email. Um, and you just want to make sure to, once you decide you want to do a family history interview and decide who you want to interview, to ask ahead of time because you don't want to catch the person off guard. Because it can be pretty strange if you just go up to someone, even if it's a family member, and start asking them questions. And it's also a great way to get kids involved with their family history. So, like I said, if you have grandchildren, it can be a way to get them learning about what their family was like, where they come from. So, there's a few things you want to think about ahead of time um, when you're doing a family history interview. So, in order to get the most out of the interview, it's a good idea to prepare a little bit beforehand so you're just not asking random questions or making it uncomfortable. So, the first thing is to don't get overwhelmed and cover everything at once. You'll see later in this video that there's a ton of questions you can ask about. And there's articles online that have like 100 family interview questions you can ask. But you want to really think about what you want to learn about when you're talking to a specific person and focus your questions towards that topic. So it can be like a certain time in their life, like their childhood, historical events, the family traditions, stuff like that. You don't really want it to go too long. You don't want it to be like an hour long interview. So you want to kind of tailor um, what you want to ask about. And you also want to consider who you're going to be interviewing. So is it your older relatives or is it a bunch of people at once during a reunion? This can also help you kind of narrow your questions that you want to ask or how many. So if you're doing a bunch of people, you might want to only pick two or three that you can ask a bunch of people at once or that they can just like write down their answer to. And if it's an older relative, you really want to be careful about um, picking things that you want to know the answer to. And you also, I would advise picking some questions ahead of time so you have like an outline, but also don't be afraid to go along with the flow of the conversation. Um, as you start talking about things, it will be more comfortable, and your relative or family member might just start bringing things up on their own that they want to talk about, and that's like perfectly fine. And how the interview goes largely depends on the personality of the family member. So are they more open to talking about their past, or is it a little more hard to get them to open up? And these are just some things that will help you get started. So once you have picked the person you want to interview and have thought about kind of the topics, here are some general topics that you can talk about. Like I said, it's very overwhelming. There's a ton of questions. I'm just going to give you some examples for each of these general topics. Um, but you can pick any question you want to ask your relative. And just remember to focus on things that you want to know, as well as what the person will be able to answer. So, especially if it's like an older relative, you want to be careful about taking into consideration their health and their mental health when asking about like sensitive topics. And just a general interview advice here. Um, there's two different kinds of questions you can ask. You can ask closed questions, which are things that will give you a yes or no answer, like verifying dates. Or you can also ask more open ended questions that will give you a story and require some more explanation. So, in the next few slides, I'm going to go over some of these general topics and also give you some examples of questions to ask so you can have them later. So, the first type of questions are questions about their childhood. So, things like tell me about your childhood home. What did you do for fun? What was your neighborhood like? Who were your friends when you were growing up? You can also ask questions about their school, what their life was like when they went to elementary school, even high school, college. So, what activities did you participate in? Who was your favorite teacher? Did you go to college? And what were your favorite subjects? And you can also focus on questions about their family, or that would be your family as well. So, things about their parents, their siblings, a favorite relative they have, um, things about the family overall. And if they were married, you can also ask questions specific to their marriage. So, how did you meet? What was the wedding day like? What was the reception like? Um, and things about how their marriage went after even the marriage itself. And you can also ask about their adult life. So, things about their career. What was your profession? What was your favorite place? What was your favorite job? Just things about their adult life, so you're not just focusing on their childhood. And then I also have you can ask questions about historical events. So depending on how old your relative is, certain events they would have been alive when that happened, like say JFK being assassinated, even something like 9/11. You can ask, where were you when this happened and how did it affect your life? But with these historical events, you want to also be careful. If they're uncomfortable, if it's hard to talk about, you don't have to continue that line. Or if you think it's going to be hard to talk about, you could pass on those. um, and you can also ask about holidays and traditions. So these are just like family traditions that you might know about or you might not. So things like, how did you celebrate birthdays and holidays? What about holiday meals and family recipes and that kind of stuff? So those were just a few questions for each of those. But like I said, there are a ton of places to look for ideas for questions if you didn't like any of those. So I took these example questions from the Family Tree magazine article listed here, and the American Ancestors article here. But if you just search on Google for family history questions, it will give you um, articles like this that have like 50 or 100 family history questions that you can go for ideas. And just some other quick tips at the end here. So, if you're meeting in person or even if you're doing it online, you can bring or share pictures, family pictures you have, or heirlooms, because they can help the person you're interviewing remember things, or it'll give you a prompt for something to talk about too. And you really want to consider recording or taking notes during the conversation. So, if you have a smartphone, there are apps that will let you use your smartphone as a recorder, or you can bring a tape recorder if you still have those. Or, like I said, you can take notes, but the taking notes is hard because you are also trying to interview or talk to them at the same time, so it can be a little distracting. But you want to save this information that they're sharing with you, so you definitely want to record it somehow. And like I said before, you want to also respect any boundaries or limits your family member has. So if they're uncomfortable talking about something, just go along with it. You don't want to push them. And if they're an older family member who have memory issues, you don't want to go too far. You just accept whatever information they give you. And this is a kind of advice for myself. Don't be shy. So it can be hard to kind of initiate these conversations sometimes, but in general, people like to talk about themselves. Once you get started, they're going to be happy to share their information about their life. And as a wrap up at the end of the interview, you can also take time just to ask if there's anything that they wanted to talk about that you didn't get to, or that you missed, because that'll be a great wrap up, and it'll also prevent any like what ifs that the person has that they would regret not sharing something with you. And that is all I had for that overview. Like I said, feel free to email me with any questions or anything about genealogy. I love talking about it. Um, Next week, Monday, will be a quick video on how to do, or not on how to do, but on doing DNA tests and interpreting your results, and also kind of looking at DNA matches and what to do with those. So thanks for watching.